Just 13 days till the Iowa caucuses, and Donald Trump has just scored an endorsement from one Sarah Palin. Expected to speak just a few minutes from now. We'll take you live to Ames, Iowa when it happens. Then, with Bernie Sanders gaining traction, and he is Hillary Clinton preparing here for a long haul in the primary process, just like she faced in 2008. We know how that worked out. Then, some big names are being floated to run for congressional seats that are opening up. This could be an opportunity for Democrats to take some seats right in our own backyard. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. That interesting interview and also a remembrance of a local person we just lost. But we begin tonight with Donald Trump in Iowa. Now, any minute now, Sarah Palin is expected to join Donald Trump in Ames and endorse the Donald. We'll go to that. In the meantime, Republican Iowa Governor Terry Branstad, he just came out with a very surprising statement today. He is going on the warpath against one Ted Cruz because he says Cruz, a win would damage his state. Now, according to Real Clear Politics averages, Trump and Cruz neck in Iowa. But over in New Hampshire, Trump, he's got a pretty solid lead. Surprise there, John Kasich. The Ohio governor, has quietly moved into second place. And as that race has gotten tighter, Trump has ramped up the attacks on Cruz. That's upsetting conservative radio hosts Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin. Rush saying the following, quote, Trump is making a strategic error in the way that he criticizes Cruz. Mark Levin, not known here to mince words, went a little bit further, posting the following statement on Facebook, quote, either cut the crap or you will lose lots and lots of conservatives. Put down your computer keyboard for a few hours and think before you tweet. Let's bring in the panel. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Michael Tobman, independent political consultant. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. All right, guys, again, we're waiting to hear from not only the Donald, but Sarah Palin.
With bated breath.
Yes, exactly. As I think Andrew said jokingly, the fall of the Roman Empire shortly. But you know what? I think it says a lot that the other ones wish they were getting her endorsement tonight.
Of course. If we're looking at this in terms of the general election, most New Yorkers would say, why in the world would you want Sarah Palin's endorsement?
You're cubing crazy.
Right,
yeah.
right. Good way to put it.
Thank you.
However, evangelicals, Iowa, she's a conservative heavyweight. Trump has a 1-2 punch going. The governor, as you just reported, going against Ted Cruz, and with Sarah Palin, who one could argue that Cruz would not be in the Senate, possibly, if not for her strong support. This is a 1-2 victory for Trump.
How important is it, Michael, to get the Tea Party cred? Because in the same news cycle, you see Donald Trump trying to court the evangelicals and butchering biblical citations. But that said, what does he have to do? Just not offend? Is that enough, or does he have to do more?
Trump, flying by the seat of his pants and being spontaneous and making these things up as he goes along has served him well. I mean, at this table, we have predicted his undoing many times, and I hope you'll have your passports, because if he becomes president, I'm moving to Toronto and you'll come and visit.
Well, you're going to have to beat me, too, because I'm ahead of you.
I'll meet you at the border, right? We'll have an exodus north.
They're going to close the border.
But Palin was seen as being shabbily treated by the McCain folks. They thought that she was the best part of that ticket on the far right, and then there's a gender component. And if there were women who were thinking, I can't quite bring myself to vote for Trump because of all his history or his messy page 6 divorces and the gossip pages, and Palin comes on and says, the hockey moms love him, and
she's got her own ugly tabloids,
and
but
it's more press, right? The other thing is it's more press, and it's what's going to dominate the news cycle for the next 48 hours and drown out everything else.
He gets the press, and I'm sure Cruz was sort of hoping for Palin's endorsement also, but I think we're putting too much stock in the power that a Palin endorsement really has. I don't think she's the bellwether for the Tea Party anymore.
Don't you think Michael nailed it? It made, as soon as he said it, I'm like, you know what? Every day on the calendar, I bet you Trump gets off and looks, all right, what am I going to do? So I'm going to put an X through it because I own the day. Today it's Palin. He'll say something else the day before. You'll just get everybody off message, and it's about him.
And it could be negative things about the others.
Canada,
But I thought that was what was most damaging for Cruz were these 2 New York Times pieces that said he did not disclose loans from Goldman Sachs to his wife. You want to be the anti-establishment. Right. You want to be the crusader, and you're taking loans from the poster child for Wall Street access. I don't necessarily believe that, but and then you didn't disclose it. And we had to take out. We had to cash in our savings in order to get into the runoff for the Texas. No, you didn't. Apparently, you didn't.
Anything that keeps the spotlight off Cruz is good for Trump. Trump needs to win Iowa more than I think any. I mean, he needs the succession of wins so that he can continue the theme of "I'm a winner," and that's why you should back me. That's been one of the running themes he's had in his campaign so far.
Who do you
Even
think,
a second place in Iowa hurts.
Who do you think? And I don't know what evangelicals want, nor am I going to pretend to or anything else, but it's clear for anyone who thinks that people abhor Trump, that have any connection within the Republican Party, and I think that's real, they detest Ted Cruz. They resent Ted Cruz, what he's done. They think it would take him off the rails here. When you look at the McCains and the Grahams and the rest, not that they're going to decide the election, but they don't even make a pretense that they think this guy was everything wrong with their party, and whatever opportunities for momentum they could have gotten, he consistently, through selfishness and aggrandizement, took him off the rails. I really think they hate Cruz more than they hate Trump.
Well, because he's a senator, and because it's supposed to be a distinguished club. It's supposed to be the most selective club in the country, and he got elected, and they had to deal with him. He's eclipsed Rand Paul as the person they roll their eyes at, right? And with his filibusters and, guys, come on, we got to get out of here in the next 72 hours. Cruz doesn't care. He just doesn't care. But Trump, he's out of Washington. He's a buffoon. He's the real estate mogul who builds subsidized government projects and hotels and bankruptcies. They get that, right? They could wrap their mind around that. But Cruz?
But Cruz has also had a history of interfering in the House. I got this from Peter King in Washington. I was reminded of it. Peter King despises Ted Cruz because he thinks that Ted Cruz caused the government shutdown, which hurt the GOP, which is fine. But, the people who would be hurt, the people who would follow Peter King and dislike Ted Cruz, you've got this anti-establishment push going in the Republican Party anyway. So I'm not sure that necessarily works against them. I think there's an equal amount of hatred from establishment Republicans for
Richard, you're going to
Trump.
start seeing it work against them, and that's what I
just
think.
want to say one thing, John. That live shot in Ames right now, if we could pot up the audio, if it's possible. I'm not being facetious. That's the song they're playing, Sympathy for the Devil by the Stones. Again, you can't make this stuff up, Dominic. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, the only point I was going to make is that Andrew's right as it relates to the folks that don't like Cruz and whether or not it may work against him or may not work against him. However, we're starting to see that. For the governor, who remains neutral,
it's
to come
about
out and
ethanol,
say,
but still nobody in the public cares about
Right,
that.
but-
The
but
idea
in
that a
other words,
mainstream
it's
governor
an
hates
interesting
you.
That used to decide. You had to go and take the ethanol pledge.
Right.
Now, I think there was another story that in the Republican primary field, they're not paying attention to local issues. It's all this national brand narrative as opposed to earlier where it was about
Cruz
ethanol.
is not going to be the nominee. They're going to start the process of taking him out right now.
And this will be a longer primary fight than what it was for the Republicans in 2012 or in 2008. The early states are all proportional, which means you'll only get a slight lead. The winner only gets a slight advantage in delegates. I think the mainstream candidates benefit because you can go in deep into March, and it might be the beginning of April before we know who the Republican
We'll talk
frontrunner is.
Democrats next segment here because in itself that's fascinating. But I think sometimes we get too close to this. Less than 2 weeks from now, Donald Trump, it would be a surprise if he doesn't walk away clearly with New Hampshire and even potentially Iowa. And the guy in Iowa is Ted Cruz. Now, I think the Democrats' worst nightmare is if John Kasich all of a sudden emerges here as a viable one, because for people who are looking for something different, he sounds normal. He seems competent. He's got a pretty decent track record in Ohio. Ohio matters.
It increases his viability as a really safe vice presidential choice as well if he comes in a respectable third in some places.
And pretty soon, Jeb Bush is going to have to say, throw in the towel, and that money's got to go somewhere, right? And if it's either going to go to Rubio or Kasich, whoever they think's got a better chance to win,
Probably Rubio.
And what's amazing, Richard, Jeb Bush is not even part of the conversation.
Nope.
I mean, think about that. We haven't talked about him at all. At all. For all the money, for the name recognition, he's basically a non-player.
There's a new, and forgive me, I won't mention the network, but there's a new cable TV show just started Sunday night focusing on the presidential election. It's going to run, and they don't know where it's going to go, right? They're just going to shoot it as they shoot it. And the first episode was The Outsiders. So it was Bernie Sanders, Trump, and Cruz. That's how they're kicking off a show that's going to be on 30 minutes every week through the election in November. They know, marketing-wise, that that's their best hook to start with.
Any consolidation among the Republican mainstream candidates is bad news for the Democrats. The Democrats want as much fracture as they can get. The longer you get Trump, Cruz, and somebody else, or a couple of somebody else's running behind him, that's good for the Democrats. If Rubio or Kasich or Jeb, see, I mentioned him, emerges as an establishment, a legitimate establishment candidate at the expense of the other mainstream,
but you know
that hurts.
And I'm sorry for you too, okay? You're going to have, I don't think this is just about this race. I think we've gotten to the point in American politics where people want to be entertained. If all of a sudden somebody credible emerges on the other side for the Republicans and it gets back to be an election like everything else, and you don't have a soundbite every night that happened on the trail, Trump insulting a woman or talking about building the wall and having the Mexicans pay for it or making fun of a disabled or something, or outrageous, offensive and otherwise, people can be a little disappointed. I think people genuinely think, entertain me. That should be part of the process. The reality TV age we live in, I don't want to be right, but I'm telling you, people, it's just, blah, blah, blah. Make me laugh. Tell me something that's going on.
Let's see how the votes come in, because we've heard this in other cycles. Remember 4 years ago.
I'll bet you even money. You don't think Trump will win one of the two? I bet you does.
Remember 4 years ago, it was Bachmann and it was Kaine and it was whoever else. There were, like, it was a food fight among Republicans, and then all of a sudden it wound up being Mitt Romney, who was the least reality show candidate that was on the ballot for Republicans. Let's see how people actually vote.
Do you think this is changing campaigns, period, going forward, how things are going to be done, where people are going to say to you, Michael, hey, I don't want to have to spend all the money for the flyers. I want to do all the following. I want to say whatever I want to say. I won't be filtered. I won't be whatever. And you know what? I don't have to spend a ton of money.
Trump is what's different. Trump is what's changed it, because Cruz, Rubio, of course, Jeb, Kasich, they've all run presidential campaigns, but this notion that he's a spectacle, Trump, so he gets to just call into radio news programs and
blocks and national morning news programs. I've never seen that before.
I mean, forgive me, but I worked for a pretty press-savvy United States senator.
Yes.
And you just can't get away with that. I mean, it's just not done. You know, you get 880 and 1010 at the end of the Sunday after you've done everything else, and you call from the car. Great, maybe. But this, I've never seen anything like this. But listen, he's not a regular person, Trump. He started out.
I agree with your assessment, but it's been going this way for a while. I mean, let's think about this. Who would you rather have a beer with? That's leading towards entertainment. And it's been going this way for a while. Personality driven. He or she who has the best personality for the most part, despite their transgressions, they are the ones that seem to do well. So this is almost tailor-made for a Donald Trump.
But we saw at the end of 2014, mainstream Senate Republicans winning the majority, pushing to the side their Tea Party brethren in order to run electable candidates. And maybe that's the difference between state by state and national campaigns.
I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, but people are angry, and people also, they love the show. If Donald Trump dropped out tomorrow, the general public, Democrats too, would be upset because they like the show. Anyway, for what it's worth. All right, we're going to go out to a break here. As we do, we're still waiting to hear. Listen to me. I'm as bad as the rest of them. We're waiting to hear from Trump and Palin. Yes, Sarah Palin, you betcha. And we'll also be talking also on the Democratic side of the aisle as well. Stay with us.